Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Victory Green Hour as the Philadelphia Eagles defeat the Los Angeles Rams 28-22 to advance to their 8th NFC Championship game this century, which is the most in the NFC, and they are going to be facing the Washington Commanders for the third time this year. I'm your host, LJ Harrell, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Connor Donald. Connor, what's up, bud?
Oh, it wasn't pretty, but they got it done. And I mean, at the end of the day, as much as Jalen Hurts is going to face scrutiny this week, all he does is win.
And if he's going to face scrutiny, Patrick Mahomes should, Josh Allen should. Their numbers were comparable, but it's a different story for a different day. Before we jump into the game, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHarrell54. Follow the Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcast at Eagles Pinpool Network. Be sure to rate and review and give us 5 stars. And if you're joining us live, let us know your thoughts in the comment section. Joaquin, I'm almost saying this. Joaquin. I'm sorry, buddy. Williams, thank you for joining us. Hello to you as well. So before we jump into the game, one thing I'm going to say is I hope the Philadelphia Eagles never get a domed stadium. The snow globe effect, the Snow Bowl number 2, the Snow Bowl 2, that is football atmosphere. And I know the Eagles would love to host Joaquin. Thank you, Joaquin. I apologize, bud. Thank you for joining us. I know the Philadelphia Eagles want to be able to host the Super Bowl. I know they had WrestleMania, and the wrestlers were sort of kind of complaining about the weather. It was a little cold, at least night 1. I went night 2, and I thought it was actually fine. And I know that they wanted, they're going to be revolutionizing, for lack of a better term, the sports complex in South Philly. I don't want a dome stadium. I don't even want a retractable roof. I want it open. If they get a new stadium, which the Link's 20 years old, Citizens Bank Park is 20 years old. There's going to be a new Flyers arena / crappy basketball team arena, in like the 2030s. But so the Eagles are eventually going to get a new stadium, even though the Link is good right now. No retractable roof, no dome. Football is meant to be played in the elements. When you have home field advantage, you want to have home field advantage. If you're playing in the playoffs and there's a chance for snow, you don't want a team that's not used to it, like say a Tampa Bay Buccaneers or like the Rams or San Francisco. You don't want them to have the ability to come here and play in a climate controlled stadium. So I hope, and I'm putting this out there now, and I know there are going to be people that may disagree, but I hope that the Eagles never go to a domed stadium, because the TV the TV look of it, all the snow, when the fan, when Saquon ran for one of his touchdowns and the fans are going crazy with snow, that is such a great, just looking at it, just the view of it was so fun to watch. I don't know what your thoughts on that before we jump into the game, but no dome stadium, no retractable roof, playing the elements. That's how football is supposed to be played.
I know, I couldn't agree more. I mean, but we grew up where everyone basically there was no such thing as domes. I love the open air stadium. These teams are making enough money that they don't care to host specific events during the winter or whatever. They fill the Link with country shows and rock shows throughout the summer. And then of course they have the football, which is a moneymaker. So I mean, they shouldn't care because they're making plenty of money. They're doing just fine for themselves.
Well, they always want to find ways to make more money, so they do.
Of course they do, but in a way. But I agree with you. Like, we grew up where it was pretty much 95% stadiums that were just open air, and now they're more and more moving away from it. But like watching that Bills and Ravens game, watching this Eagles and Rams game, that's what football is all about. That's what December and January football is all about. I get it. We may never get a Super Bowl. I think that's kind of unfair. I don't think that should really make a difference, but it does. And I agree with you. The TV presentation, just the whole presentation of it all, it's only the teams that have domes that hate the open air, or the ones who play in warm weather that hate it. And it's only because they don't play against those elements often. But it is like some of the greatest games, some of the greatest moments come from games that were in the elements. That's what it's all about.
The Raiders and the Patriots was that 20
The
or so?
the Tuck rule
20
game.
or so years ago. Even in Dallas, the Leon Lett game against Miami, when they got unexpected snow and Dallas blocked the field goal and Leon Lett went and touched it and Miami picked it up, and I think they ended up winning that game. So, and then, Shady against the Lions 11 years ago, Saquon this weekend. Like, you're right. Some of the, all like the great performances or just the presentation of these performances are magnified because of the snow that you can see on TV. Party on Broad, thanks for joining us. What's up? Ewing 609, thank you for joining us. What's going on? And Joaquin, you're right. Open stadiums, man. Leave it that way. Especially if you're in the Northeast, man. So, like, MetLife got the Super Bowl, what was it, like almost 10 years ago now, maybe? And they got fortunate with that because there was the Super Bowl that Sunday, and they got a snowstorm the next day. So they got fortunate in that. So we'll see what happens because I'm pretty sure that Jeffrey Lurie's thinking ahead, potentially thinking about a new stadium with the link being 20 years old now. Probably have a good 5-10 more years, probably 10 more years before he might have to start planning or thinking about what to do. Just no retractable roof, no dome, keep it open air, and let's use the elements to our advantage. Now, could a dome potentially make it louder with the ravenous fan base of the Eagles? Maybe, but that place was ridiculously rocking yesterday. It's going to be rocking this week against Washington. It was rocking in 2017 against Minnesota in the NFC Championship game. It doesn't matter when it comes to Philadelphia fans. They're going to make themselves known. They're going to have the place rocking, and that's what you don't need to worry about having a dome roof. All right. Sorry, I had to go on that tangent because
there are people out there who don't like it. There are people who think that it's an unfair advantage and that it should be played on an equal playing field, and that
or they're soft. Just saying.
Or there's. I agree with you on that point, 100%.
Like ESP wants a dome stadium. He's talking about Mr. Softy. But that's another story for another day. All right, so the Eagles won 28-22. The running game, again, franchise record 285 yards rushing. The passing game was it had its moments. There were a couple of drops, a couple of penalties on decent pass gains that would have made Jalen's numbers look better. He was 15-20, 75% completion percentage, like that. Threw for 128 yards, took 7 sacks, which might be the issue. And I'm shocked. I didn't think that the Eagles would give up so many sacks. And I give Party on Broad a hat tip because, on Friday he was talking about the interior of the Eagles offensive line, and I didn't think they were going to play that bad. And Mekhi Becton had his worst game of the year. He was good against the run, especially on Saquon's 62-yard touchdown run, but on a couple of the pass plays, he had the ineligible man downfield penalty, and then there was on one of the sacks that Jalen took. He was looking at a guy running at him, and he went the opposite direction, and that was not a good look for Mekhi Becton. Probably his worst game, and that Jeff Stoutland is going to show the tape this week and have them better prepared because they're going to be going up against another good tandem at defensive tackle, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne for Washington. So I hope that the offensive line plays better. This wasn't one of their better games in pass protection, but run blocking, they did an outstanding job. And again, I'm going to say this like I've been saying for the last couple of weeks. What does Jalen always say? The main thing is the main thing, right? Since when has winning not been the main thing? I don't care if they run the ball for 300 yards, if they throw for 5 yards, if they throw for 400 yards. As long as they win, especially this time of year, survive and advance. Who the hell cares that Jalen's net total of yards or the passing net total of yards for the Eagles was like 60 yards? Did they win the game? That's all that matters. I'm sick and tired of hearing people say, what is the Eagles? Well, why can the Eagles keep winning this way? Well, they're winning. They're 16-3. Who the hell cares? They can go out there. Washington doesn't have a good run defense. They can go out there and run all they want. And obviously that could, be hindered by Jalen's knee, which we'll get into. But It doesn't matter if they're throwing the ball all over the field, if they're running it up and down the field, as long as they win and keep advancing. They're in the NFC Championship game for the 8th time since 2001. Stop complaining, enjoy the ride, and let's have some fun.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I could say the same thing you said in a few different ways, but you said it perfectly, and I couldn't agree more. As far as the whole Jalen Hurts and winning goes, I mean, I'm sure that, the Detroit Lions would like to have things a different way, and they're on their way home after an amazing season, and now they're about to lose both of their coordinators. They're about to get the Philadelphia Eagles treatment. They're going to be starting from scratch at the coordinator positions. Are things still going to work the same way? I'm going to be intrigued to see that, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in the offseason and stuff. As Aaron Glenn is the front runner for, I think, the Jets job, and he's interviewing for the Saints, and then Ben Johnson's on a flight right now to Chicago to sign his contract essentially. So obviously that'll change things. We might lose Kellen Moore, and we may be on to our 5th offensive coordinator in 6 years. But we will. I
don't know if you're going to see a bunch of people complaining about losing Kellen Moore. He was not good yesterday.
No, he hasn't been good in the playoffs. He hasn't really set, and now it's going to be really interesting because now there's a lot of assumptions that Jalen Hurts it's probably an MCL thing, and there's people saying maybe he's going to have a brace that could limit him in the rushing game and stuff. So it's going to be on Kellen Moore to try and work with what's there and some of the disadvantages that might come from having a banged up Jalen Hurts. And so far, that first game back from a concussion. There on wildcard weekend, the play column was absolutely atrocious. Not what you would want to see for a guy coming back from concussion protocol. And then of course this past week it just seemed like a continuation. Of course, the weather plays a massive factor into everything, so it throws a wrench into some things, makes life a little bit harder. And I know that some people are like, well, Matthew Stafford threw for like 200 yards and blah, blah, blah. Well, did they win? Again, at the end of the day, you can throw for 300 yards, but if you made the mistakes, if that caused some turnovers and that ended up leading to your loss, does it really matter if you run, like you said, if you run for almost 300 yards or pass for almost 300 yards? Really doesn't matter. It's a W at the end of the day. From the offensive line perspective, yeah, Mekhi Becton, of seven sacks, 3 of the sacks were attributed to the offensive line. The other 4 would have been attributed most likely to Jalen Hurts, because obviously I think someone put the times up there. There was only 1 sack that he took that was like less than 3 seconds. The rest of them, he had like 4, 5, 6 seconds on some of these sacks. It was crazy how long he was holding on to the ball. But Mekhi Becton was attributed to 2 of the sacks and 4 out of 14 pressures. Definitely not one of Mekhi Becton's better nights. And hopefully, like you said, I would say the interior of this Washington defensive line is arguably better than the LA Rams interior. They're young. The Rams are young. They're going to continue to get better and stuff and grow as a young defense. I think we're the youngest, and the Rams are the 2nd or 3rd youngest defense in the league. So they're gonna grow. They're coming off losing Aaron Donald and stuff. So, but obviously the Commanders have 2 of the best premier defensive tackles in the NFL. So offensively, I mean, the weather was definitely going to impact things, and we knew it would, especially from a passing perspective. And AJ Brown had 2 horrendous drops. AJ Brown is clearly not anywhere close to 100%. He still not look,
especially the one at the end of the first half, where it might not have been a touchdown, but he was right there like that. Again, he catches that. Jalen's 16 of 20. That's another 35 yards. Like he's over $150, $160. So like again, and then the screen to Dallas Goedert, which Mekhi Becton had the ineligible man downfield. That was another 20, 25 yards. So like you think about it, all these yards start adding up. That's about 100. There were about 100 yards that Jalen could have had more passing. AJ dropped another one, and then Devontae dropped one, but he also got popped on it. So I give him a little leeway on that, as there was a penalty. It's crazy that the one thing you mentioned, how the Eagles are the youngest defense in the NFL. Think about it. They could get technically younger next year. If Darius Slay's not going to be there, Brandon Graham's not going to be there, and you replace them with a rookie defensive end potentially, and whoever they decide to get to start across from Quinyon Mitchell, whether that's Isaiah Rodgers, who had himself a day after Quinyon Mitchell went out, or Keely Ringo or whoever's going to start over there. But I want to talk about the injuries real quick. We talked about Jalen. They haven't announced what it is. He definitely got his leg rolled up on a sack, which I don't know if it was a hip drop tackle, but it was really close to it. But it feels like all this stuff. Remember in the preseason and the offseason, they were talking about how the hip drop tackle was going to be monitored closely. I feel like I haven't seen that penalty called once. Like Dalton Schultz should have got hip drop tackle on Saturday, and it wasn't called against the Chiefs, which surprisingly shocking, wasn't called against the Chiefs.
There was a couple this weekend, a handful of instances that arguably could have been called as hip drop tackles. I don't know. I agree with you on the on the Hurts one. That one's a bit tougher because it was two of the guys, and you don't know, like, if it was just one guy, would he have went down the way he went down? It's hard to tell because it was just the two of the guys coming together, and then the way that he just kind of pulled him back. So that's kind of tough to tell. But the Dalton Schultz one was by a textbook, like, put it in the when they do the video again to show what is a hip drop tackle in the offseason, if they update it, Dalton Schultz is one of the premier calls right there.
And it wasn't, and there was no flag thrown. And there were a couple, like Jalen may have gotten hit out of bounds. Lamar Jackson did. That flags weren't called. But if you get near Patrick Mahomes, if you sneeze near him, flags are coming out. Like, there needs to be consistency when it comes to quarterbacks. Either let them get hit, and Jared Goff got laid out by cheap shot artist for Louvu, and like that should have been a flag, so that shouldn't have been a pick six, because again, if anybody does that to Patrick Mahomes, there's going to be a public execution at the 50-yard line, like in the middle of the game.
Some people argued that because he threw the pick and he turned into a defender at that point. If that was Patrick Mahomes, that's a penalty 100%. Doesn't matter if he threw the pick and he turned into a defender, 100%. That's getting called. You don't hit anybody like that. Like, even if it's not the quarterback, that's a blindside hit. That's a dirty hit.
And then the other injury, Quinyon Mitchell, his shoulder injury. It took them a while, like for them to announce that he was out, but apparently he was in good spirits after the game, so hopefully he'll be good to go. It's obviously going to depend on the strain of the grade of his shoulder injury. They'll need him with Terry McLaurin coming to town. Isaiah Rodgers, how he got the Robinson pretty much ripped an interception from his hands. It was so frustrating that play. If Quinyon's in that same exact spot, he at least knocks it down. I don't know if he'll pick it off. I know he got one, but his issue with catching footballs. But that was frustrating. But I'm hoping, like, excuse me, that Isaiah Rodgers will at least get more practice time out there this week, and he'll be more comfortable. He did play, like, Matthew Stafford was definitely targeting him a lot. And I know he had the fumble recovery, which he almost took it to the house, showing his speed, had a nice little spin move on that. But hopefully Q's good to go. Darius Slay had himself a great game. Like, he gave up one catch to Puka Nacua. That was about 35 yards. But, man, that game by Darius Slay, he probably could have had himself a couple of picks. This is why I get he's on. I think this is the last year of his deal. I know he's 34, 35. I don't know if will still consider himself a starter. But if they can bring him back as the third corner, let Quinyon start, and whoever they decide to bring in or start on the other side, and let him be that veteran leader on the other side, man, I would you can tell what type of captain he is. Everybody looks up to him. He is such a great person. I would love to have Slay back.
I couldn't agree more. It is the last year of his contract. I'm just looking now. I mean, I agree. I would love to have Darius Slay back. I mean, how much is it going to cost you? I mean, it all depends. But the way that he's playing, the way that he continues to play is really impressive. So we'll end up waiting and seeing on that one. His cap hit over the last 3 years was 11.9, 10.6, and 13.7. So I don't know how low he'd go and how low we would want to go or what we think would be respectable.
And he likes it here too. Remember last year when they were going to cut him and he was going to go to Baltimore, his wife, she was upset, and they've been great for the community as well. Like they were, I think Slay was born to play in Philly, and I know he played in Detroit for the first half of for the front portion of his career, but like playing in Philly was made for Darius Slay. I get it. Like he goes on Micah Parsons' podcast, he has his own, he likes to talk, but just the type of leader that he is and what he does for the locker room, what he's doing with the young guys in that secondary room, like I would want him to be back.
Yeah, Texas brings Slay back on a team-friendly deal. I'd be fine with a 2 or 3 year deal where you guarantee the first year. And I don't know if there's many teams that are actually going to give him that type of deal, if how much they're willing to guarantee, but maybe even guarantee 1.5 of those 3 years. And then the rest you can cut him for nothing as he gets into his age 36, 37 season. But like Party on Broad says, D-Slay's numbers weren't great, but man, I thought he played his ass off. He definitely did. He was playing hard out there. And like you said, he easily could have had a couple more picks, maybe a couple more pass breakups.
I'm pretty sure he played every snap. Like there have been a couple of games where he got banged up and had to come out, but he was on the field. So going through some of these comments, Party on Broad said, shout out to Moro Jomo, doesn't get his emergence change your stance at all about adding a top 3 round defensive tackle in next year's draft? I think that'll depend on Milton Williams. If you bring Milton Williams back, having a rotation of Carter, Williams, or Jomo with Davis, like you don't need to worry about defensive tackle. But if Milton Williams goes, I mean, you're going to have to, obviously not first round. I think first round is going to be edge or offensive line, but eventually bring in a defensive tackle. I would love for them to bring Milton Williams back, but I think he's earned himself a payday, and unfortunately, it might be a little too rich for the Eagles.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's a report that came out where they were interviewing Milton Williams, and Milton Williams said that he's heard probably through his agent that there's a market for him. There's a pretty rich market for him, which I'm not surprised that like Milton Williams may not have like Aaron Donald like numbers, but he's definitely a high-end defensive tackle. Same as Josh Sweat. Josh Sweat doesn't have these elite numbers, but they are both at these premium positions that just keep getting richer and richer. So I'm already prepared to kind of come to the realization that we probably need to pay Zach Bond a significant chunk of money, and that's going to mean Sweat and Milton Williams are likely out of the fold.
I won't be mad about Sweat being gone, but that's just me. And Bryce Elf is going to be gone because he got 0 snaps yesterday, a big fat 0. Nolan Smith is good. Like he is really good. Jalen Carter is going to end up, if he's not now, he's going to end up being the best defensive tackle in football, like a future defensive player of the year. He was outstanding yesterday, and he probably saved it. On third down at the end of the game, the sack that he had on Stafford, there was an open, I think it was Higbee, open in the middle of the field that maybe could have been a touchdown or at least inside the 5. He potentially saved the game and the season for the Eagles yesterday. Quinton says McKee needs rep this week with the ones. It's not happening. He's going to be the emergency QB. We can stop bringing up McKee because if yesterday, if Hurts couldn't go back in, it was going to be, unfortunately, Pickett. I think McKee should be the backup. It's not going to happen this year. Maybe next year. So we can get off the whole McKee thing. Party on Broad says, I give major credit to the Eagles for fighting. Felt like every 50-50 ball and every bounce went to the Rams. We couldn't capitalize on all 4 turnover-worthy plays from Stafford. Yeah, I mean, again, the Robinson catch over Rodgers, the Nakua catch over Slay, like it did feel like a lot of the big plays went the Rams' way. But like you said, the Eagles deserve a lot of credit. They battled, and this is why, like, that's what this team does. Like, while the outside world, outside of the locker room, talks about Sirianni and how he can't keep coaching the way he coaches, and why is he still here? This team plays for Nick Sirianni. CJGJ in the locker room gave him his chain. Like, they love Nick Sirianni. Jordan, so there was a story came out. I don't know if it was last week or the week before, like how Nick Sirianni, when Jordan Mailata was going through things with, I think, his father, Nick Sirianni brought him into the office and was like, look, if you need time off, let me know. Anything you need, let me know. Like, he actually cares about all of his players. He wrote personalized letters to some players for things. Like, he can, and it's not just lip service with him. The way he acts, in press conferences, that's how he is in front of the team. Now, it might be different because the team's around him more, and what we see is only like a portion of Nick Sirianni. But there's a reason why the team continues to fight for him and continues to play for him and always talks him up. And he deserves a lot of credit. All he does is win too. Like,
yep.
He's got how many wins? He's the first coach, or he's got the most wins in the first 4 years or something. I forget what the stat is, but all he does is win.
Yeah, he does. He's ahead of, I think, the two Harbaughs and Matt LaFleur for that stat. But I agree. And he treats the players like humans. He doesn't treat them like, that you play this game, you leave the game and you go your separate ways and you don't talk. No, he is a true leader. He is a definition of what you want to see from a leader, even in your own damn workplace. That's the type of leader you want. Someone who treats you as more than a number or as more than a dollar figure for a company or even a team in this regard. So, I mean, I like Nick Sirianni. He's had his ups and downs. He's had his moments where it's like, why'd you say that? Why'd you do that? But I don't think me and you have ever been completely out on Nick Sirianni like a lot of other Philadelphia podcasts, Philadelphia media personalities, where we've wanted to see him have a chance. And there's no way, like, there's some people who said if he lost last week that he was going to be out. And then this week, there was even people saying if they didn't get through this game, was he going to be back? Like, why is there constantly this? All this, like you said, all this man does is when he's got one of the highest winning percentages for a coach in a specific amount, I think it's 70 games, or there's a specific minimum quantity of games that was in this stat. And he is up in the top 5 with some of the greatest coaches in NFL. And people continuously say, like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be people out there spitting it on social media or in articles saying, oh, if they don't get through this Washington game this week, I think Nick Sirianni could be done. It's such a boring, it's just like the Jalen Hurts passing thing, such boring, such lazy narratives that just aren't worth continuing to talk about. But there's always going to be people in Philly that want Nick Sirianni out. For some reason, they just dislike him. There's some people who just wish Andy Reid was still here. I seriously believe that there's just a Reid truthers.
We needed a change of scenery. We want a Super Bowl. But it's because Nick Sirianni isn't your prototypical coach, I think. And everybody has this vision of what a coach should be, and he's not that. It doesn't matter. Like, he fits what this locker room needs. Let's be honest. He does. They got rid of that losing 6 of 7, 7 of 8, and last year they got rid of the toxic in the locker room. And that could have been Hassan Reddick. And look at what the team is doing now. We're in the NFC Championship game for the second time in 3 years. Party on Broad says, LJ, would you say Jalen Carter has reached Joel Embiid status? Oh my God. No, because Jalen Carter plays like over 90% of snaps in a football game, which is physical. Joel Embiid can't play 2 games in a row because he's a little bitch. So we'll end that there.
I think even if Jalen Carter was banged up, he would go out there and play. Joel Embiid can't play banged up to save his life.
He's not a little punk. Total team effort from the Eagles defense. Even Oren Burks played above expectation. My only concern is Vic Fangio and going to that horrendous prevent defense way too soon. I agree with that. I was shocked that we didn't see Jeremiah Trotter Jr. on defense at all. Oren Burks played all the snaps that second linebacker spot got. And you're right,
68 of 71 snaps he played.
Like, he wasn't Nakobe Dean, obviously, but he made plays when he needed to make plays. He wasn't perfect, but he didn't cost the team a win. And after the Saquon 72-yard touchdown, whatever it was, by the way, the 78-yarder. Did you watch the video of that 78-yarder? Saquon got to his own 25, and Jalen Hurts threw his hands up. 75 yards away from the end zone, and Jalen Hurts knew it was a touchdown before he even got past the second level of the defense.
On both of those touchdown runs, he got over 20 miles per hour, man. The guy can move. It's crazy.
Snow, he definitely he definitely reached out to Shady, because talk about some all-time performances in the snow, over 200 yards rushing. He broke Van Buren's playoff rushing record, I think. An outstanding game by Saquon. But yeah, going back to the horrendous
prevent defense.
I hate prevent defense because it prevents you from winning. The Rams went down the field so freaking easy. It was so frustrating. They need to figure that out. We can't afford to do that. I had Atlanta and Washington games, all the Atlanta and Washington games in my head when that was happening, especially after the Eagles went 3-and-out the next series and gave the ball back. Like, they went 3-and-out right away, only took 13 seconds off the clock. I was like, oh, God, we're going to lose 29-28. Fortunately, we didn't. But you're right. Hopefully, Vic Fangio realizes, look, just keep playing. Especially when Jake Elliott is missing extra points. It's crazy. He made a 44-yarder. He was 3 of 3 on field goals, but missed 2 freaking extra points. That was worrisome.
There was a lot of points left on the field by the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, people have added it up. We could have won that game like 41-22, but there was a lot of points left on the field by this Eagles team. And we could kind of maybe attribute some of that to the weather, but to the same point for you, like, Jake Elliott has to hit the point afters. You can hit all the 50+ yard field goals you want, but if you are missing extra points at the rate you're missing them this year, that's worrisome. And then AJ Brown should have caught that ball. No matter how banged up the guy is, you catch that football. Those are AJ Brown footballs when those happen. Oren Burks, the prevent defense, I hate it too. I think it's one of the worst strategic parts of any NFL defensive strategy. I think it's one of the worst strategies to use, especially in the snow. It just makes no sense. If one of your guys slips up and that's how you give up the points in the snow, fine. But playing a prevent defense in the snow where Matthew Stafford was struggling and where this Rams team was struggling, despite the 300+ yards passing, they were still struggling. There was turnovers, there was fumbles. You had a better chance of forcing a mistake continuing to play defense as you were rather than moving to the prevent defense. But I think the prevent defense as a whole in the NFL is just one of the worst strategies in all of football.
And Barkley, I don't think Barkley said I got this. He talked about it. He didn't know what side he was supposed to be on. So I think he said to Jalen what side, because he was on one side and he was supposed to go to the other side, and Jalen checked the play and went to something different. So I think he said what side. But still, the fact that Jalen threw his hands up 75 yards away from the end zone was awesome. I like Sirianni, but he's a great coach the same way Barry Switzer is a great coach. Weren't the Eagles 4-12 the year before Sirianni got here? I'm just saying, like, so. The Eagles weren't, like, that 2020 season, they were not a good team.
Gosh, no.
So, like, again, he got that team to the playoffs the next year. And I know we got killed by Tampa, but still, he's been to the playoffs. I think he's a better coach than Barry Switzer, but, that's just me.
And then Party on Broad says, whispers, I was out on Sirianni. There's a lot of people that were. There's no shame in admitting you were out, but there's some people who, if Nick Sirianni gets his team to the Super Bowl and we win the Super Bowl, there are still going to be people who want Sirianni's head on a stake for some reason. It makes zero sense to me why there's such a hate for Sirianni. And some people were out from that first press conference and the analogies he was making. And some people have just never come back from that first press conference for whatever reason. But there's no shame in saying you were out on Sirianni. There was a lot of people who won't admit it. But, I mean, we even speculated being out on Sirianni during the bye week in the state that we were in. So let's not lie. There's probably way more people out there who were out on him in the bye week.
And unlike other coaches, he listens to his players. They all, bye week came in, said, hey, I think we should change things up. They changed things up, and they've lost one game since the bye week. One game. And now they're in the NFC Championship game against the team that beat them, albeit Jalen Hurts only played 12 snaps. But as Party on Broad says, all eyes are on the Hurts injury given the passing game. And if Hurts can't use his legs, then we'll need to have a conversation. Obviously, yeah. I mean, if he can't use his legs, it could be like when Kenny Pickett was in there and Washington knew Kenny Pickett wasn't going to run the football, and they could just key in on Saquon. I do think that the passing game will be better on Sunday. I'm intrigued with the Marshawn Lattimore, A.J. Brown battle, obviously. A.J. Brown won the battle the last time they played, even though Washington won the game. And again, I don't think A.J. Brown's going to drop multiple catches again in the game. We'll see. But he can't be mad. Like, he wants to be involved in the game, and Jalen threw 2 really good passes to him, and he dropped them both, which would have upped his yardage total to 60, 70, 80 yards. So hopefully, they can get back on track. And obviously, AJ's probably not going to practice, Tuesday or Wednesday this week, and he'll probably be out there Thursday because they're managing that knee injury that he has. But AJ did admit that, like, playing in the snow was hard to see, this, that, and the third. I'm not using it as an excuse, but it's not going to snow on Sunday, and probably not going to rain. It might be cold, but it should be, really good weather compared to Sunday. And I think AJ will have a better day, Devontae and whatnot. But that Washington defense did look really good against Detroit, and we'll talk about, obviously, Washington more later this week.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I agree. AJ's got to get it together. No matter how banged up he is, having him on the field and making plays is vital for this offense. And Party on Broad says that the game screams a Dallas Goedert game. Dallas Goedert's been tremendous in the playoffs. He's been doing so good. Like, you realize how much, especially when AJ's banged up, Devontae's banged up, Jalen Hurts just came back from the concussion protocol, and the passing offense just hasn't gotten going yet. Dallas Goedert's been great, and I would be happy to see Sunday be a Dallas Goedert game. Although Marshawn Lattimore, it feels like A.J. Brown has Marshawn Lattimore's number, and Lattimore just can't keep up. Now, earlier in the season, how banged up was A.J. Brown when he was drawing penalty after penalty? With Lattimore, that's tough to say. If he's going to be able to blow by Lattimore, out physical Lattimore like he did in that earlier game, that'll be interesting to see. But, I mean, and Party on Broad talks about he's worried about the pass protection more than Jalen Hurts. I tend to agree. It feels like, unfortunately, things have started to go the wrong way for this offensive line that's been the best in the NFL. So hopefully they can, get it together, check out the tape, say this was really bad and we need to turn this around and we need to be better and get better, especially knowing the guy behind you's banged up and may not be as mobile as he was. You need to make sure that you're able to protect him. But it's also on Kellen Moore. He's got to get some quick hitters in this scheme. I do not get it.
It did feel like there were a lot of long developing routes, and
in the snow,
he looked again. He looked so woefully unprepared, and he's going to end up getting the Dallas job. And Jalen's going to get another offensive coordinator, which kind of the only reason I would want Jalen or Kellen Moore to stay is so that Jalen has consistency at the offensive coordinator position. But you could tell, he's not used to this level of football. Dallas never got this far into the playoffs when he was with them. No. So he's not used to it. He's got to be better. And hopefully, he puts the game plan of his life together this week. And they figured out, obviously, the Eagles are a running football team. And you're going to want to give the ball to Saquon, but you're also going to have to kind of keep the Washington defense honest and not let them put 8-9 guys in the 8-9 guys in the box. Kellen's play calling looked good. You want to know what changed? They're not facing the Giants and the Cowboys. They face Green Bay, who's a top 5 defense, and the Rams defense has been playing really good. So we stop with this crap.
We all know where Tech's going there. He's look at the winky face.
Oh my God.
But there, in the snow, it still felt like there's no way Jalen Hurts is holding onto the ball for 5 or 6 seconds willingly all the time. There's something about the play being called that is forcing Jalen to think and hold on to the ball longer. And look at Matthew Stafford, for example. Look how quick he was getting the ball out on some of those passes. Jordan Love, same thing for some of the game. Like a lot of the teams against us, and we see it every time with teams against us, and we're like, why can't we be more like this? And for some reason, our offensive coordinators want to draw way more out of Jalen Hurts than is necessary, which then leads to people thinking, oh, well, Jalen Hurts can't work in the passing game. Some of the best passing games, like even that Pittsburgh game, did he throw some bombs? Yes. Did he get the ball out quick in a number of situations when that week that he was called out and they blew up in that Pittsburgh game? Yes, he got it out so fast. So I think it's just getting some of those quick hitters and not screens. I know that, Kellen Moore loves his screens. It doesn't always have to be screens. That's not the quick hitter. You just need to have at least one route that he can turn to that is an intermediate 5 to 10 yard route that he can hit that if he doesn't see something develop the way that it should. Exactly. Party on Broad, save the slant, save Philadelphia. Slants.
They only ran like 3 or 4 slants with AJ in the game. I know, like 2 of his catches were on slants, and then there was the one that Jalen threw behind him. The pass may have been tipped. I'm not 100%, or his arm may have been hit. But yeah, AJ Brown is unstoppable with that slant play. I don't know why they don't do it more.
Even Devontae Smith, while he's really good on the outside, when they've hit Devontae Smith in the intermediate or the middle of the field, he's able to produce after the play. He goes down a little easier than AJ Brown. But I mean, look at him side by side. There's a reason he goes down a bit easier. But he's shifty. He's got good speed. They need to have some plays like that. Why is everything Jalen Hurts staring on the outside, looking for something to develop down the field? It shouldn't continue to be that way. Some of the best plays are just leaving it to the yards after the catch and working that intermediate area of the field where you have a guy like Dallas Goedert, or you have a guy like AJ Brown, or you have a guy even like Saquon Barkley.
You're not the only one that has major issues with Kellen Moore. A lot of people do. And the fact that Dallas is probably going to hire him as their head coach, this is why bad organizations stay bad. They do dumb shit. And hiring Kellen Moore as your head coach, it's going to be dumb.
I think there's just a reason. Kellen Moore has been interviewed for head coaching jobs since that first year that he unlocked.
Yeah, interviewed in Philly.
He interviewed, and the year that he unlocked Dak Prescott, he's been interviewed for 3 or 4 straight off seasons where he's had multiple interviews and he isn't getting hired. And I feel like there's a reason, and that's why for the Cowboys, that's all good.
Yeah, Cowboy fan told us about Kellen Moore, and he's about to be their head coach. I think that's funny because Dallas decided to fire McCarthy late. Ben Johnson's with Chicago. Aaron Glenn's probably going to go to the Jets. Vrabel's with the Patriots. Pete Carroll might go to the Raiders, potentially. You never know. Cohen or Saleh to the Jaguars, maybe. Monken is still out there. I'm surprised maybe he will this week because the Ravens are out. Maybe he'll get more play. Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator for the Ravens. But yeah, so kind of excited to see Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson. Caleb Williams sucks. I'm gonna say that. I think he's so overrated. And you can't win with the Bears. Ben Johnson's going to regret that going to the Bears. Just saying. I don't know where he should have went, but the Bears stink. Even the Bears have made an NFC Championship game more recently than the Cowboys. By the way, did you see that? Dallas is in the NFC. Every team has made the NFC Championship game since 2010, I believe, except Dallas, and it's been since 95 or 96, whatever it is. I found that to be awesome.
That's painful.
After Washington was behind Dallas, but Washington's in the NFC Championship game after their really good game against Detroit. And looking forward to talking about that later this week because Washington is really playing at an all-time high right now. And the Eagles are just winning. One thing I like, so actually, all these analysts on TV, the Dan Orlovskis, the Alex Smiths, and all this stuff, talking about can the Eagles win with Jalen playing the way he's playing. Nick Saban on the college game day right before the national championship tonight said something. He said, Jalen is playing the way the Eagles need him to play. And that's exactly right. He's not turning the football over. He had a 44-yard, his longest rushing touchdown of his career, 44 yards. He win, and we said it on the outside. He wins games. That's what he's doing right now. When did that become a problem?
But Nick Saban, the thing with Nick Saban, he's not a hot take guy. So some networks just don't really like that. They're like, you see Ryan, you see Orlovsky, you see those guys. They love the hot take. They love to find a couple plays that play to the hot take that they want to drop, and then they drop the hot take, and then they just run with it because that's what's getting reactions. That's what's getting people going to like us or like people on social media, and that's what's getting more clicks and more people going their way. It's Nick Saban, but Nick Saban's such a great coach. He's a legend. He's a legend of the game. When he says something, I take what he says way more than Dan Orlovsky, who's a guy who didn't even realize where the back of the end zone was on a football play. There's a reason. So,
national championship. I hope Ohio State wins because I hate Notre Dame. The Final Four, by the way, for the CFP was like my worst nightmare. Because I hate all four teams, but Ohio State's the lesser of evil in this game. So hopefully Ohio State wins.
It's good timing anyways, because I think we're pretty much wrapping up anyways.
Yeah, we are. San Diego 2019 says, watch out for the cheap shot on Jalen's knee by Frankie Louvu. He is – I need the Eagles to take him. I would take a penalty by taking his ass out the game because he is a cheap – he cheap shot at Jalen Hurts. He cheap shot at Jared Goff. That's what that guy does. He's a cheap shot artist. I need somebody to take his ass out.
It's like Al-Shahir or whatever. Like they go out there and they do it and they're like, oh, I didn't do that on purpose. They know exactly what they're doing. And if they know that there's an injury to exploit, they're going to not make it obvious, but they still try. You can tell that they're still trying. It's just in some of them.
Yeah. And if what Louvu did to Goff, he would have done that to Mahomes, Louvu would have been shot out of a cannon by Roger Goodell. Like,
would have been suspended for the.
When I talk about consistency with these calls against quarterbacks, like, can't keep letting Mahomes get away with this. Can't. Like, we're gonna give our picks for both championship games. We're gonna give our picks on championship games when we do our preview episode, but as much as I would like to see Josh Allen go to a Super Bowl, I want revenge on the Chiefs if the Eagles win. Like, I really want revenge on the Chiefs because I think we are better. I mean, the Eagles are the betting favorite right now to win the Super Bowl, which is crazy. But I want revenge on the Chiefs. I think we can beat the Chiefs this year. Just saying.
I think we could, but it all depends. You can ask some other teams. They all thought that they could beat them too. It's like 16 straight games they've won by one score. It was like an NFL record, I think.
Well, they've won in one score games. They've won 16 straight, which is crazy. But it does help when you have the refs on the payroll.
100% agreed.
What are your final thoughts on the game against LA?
I mean, listen, it was an ugly win, but the weather was ugly. The circumstance wasn't the prettiest. I don't think that, Jalen Hurts' first game back from concussion protocol, I discount that a little bit. Then this game, you got to discount in a way because you're not going to have 3 to 4 inches of snow for the next game. I think we really need to see Jalen Hurts be Jalen Hurts this week in the passing game in whatever he needs to be to get the win. And I think he'll be able to do it. Jalen Hurts has been able to do that. The knee sucks. It's a situation to monitor, but this is a guy he's a tough son of a bitch, and I think that he can get it done, and he can get the win however he needs to get it.
Did you watch his interview with the at the end of the game with NBC? The I forget who did the interview with him. That was different. Jalen Hurts, he definitely was on something. Like, they gave him a perk. He was hot. He never acts like that. And he was talking about Madden, and when he played Madden as a kid, he would put snow. He never acts like that. So he definitely was on one. Like, he'll be different this week because he's not going to be high as a kite. But he popped the perk. He did something because Jalen, man, he never acts that way. It was hilarious.
It was funny. You could tell by the look in his eyes and stuff. I was like, man, this guy is.
I will say one thing though. That's what I want Jalen to be. That's who I want Jalen to be. Like, I want him to be loose. I want him to have fun. I'm not saying he doesn't have fun, but like, he's always. He's just about like he's serious. I want him to loosen up, have some fun, be relaxed. Like, don't be so uptight. And that's the Jalen we got in that interview.
Definitely, for sure.
Well, I do want to say one thing before we get off. I give Jarrett Verse a lot of credit. He talked his crap. He talked a bunch of stuff this week, and he backed it up. And Philly, he didn't let the Philly fans get under his skin. And I do like at the end he said that, like he talked about Philly. He's like, they bleed green and white. He respected the Eagles fans because they gave it to him the way that he expected. But he backed it up. He had a good game. He had a couple of sacks. Tried to run down Saquon. I liked how Saquon slowed down a little bit, kind of like, give a little trash talk. He said he didn't say anything to him, but I highly doubt that's true. But yeah, I give Verse a lot of credit. He's a good player. He's a young rookie. Going to win the Defensive Rookie of the Year. So it was really, but good to see the Eagles still go out there and run the ball right down the Rams' throat, which is what I expect this week against Washington.
Definitely. No, I agree.
All right, so we will be back later this week to get you set for the NFC Championship game. It's an NFC East battle. The Washington Commanders and the Philadelphia Eagles for the right to go to Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans. I can't believe we are less than 3 weeks away from the Super Bowl. Man, football season goes by way too fast.
Way too quick. It feels like a painfully slow off season, and then the season just.
Also, I'm going to tell people, by the way, if the Eagles would have lost, we could have all blamed Connor. I'm not going to say why, but if anybody,
it will be correct. It will be correct. If you're a longtime watcher of the show, I promise.
Our preview if you watch our preview episodes, at the end of it, Connor does something that he didn't do this past Friday, and at the end, and after we got off, I told him I'm blaming him if the Eagles lose. So fortunately, Connor's off the hook this week. Thank you all for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHero54. And follow the Eagles Pin Pool Network on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook at Eagles Pin Pool Network. For Connor, I'm LJ. We'll be back this Friday for the preview of the NFC Championship game between the Commanders and the Eagles. Thank you for tuning in.